Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode on Football Talk Podcast. My name is Ozzy, and I'm your host for this evening. Not a lot going on in terms of match previews and all that sort of stuff, as we've not had any midweek fixtures. So I thought today let's have a bit of fun and discuss transfers in our upcoming window, which of course will be taking place in the summer. So a little bit far fetched in terms of our thinking for next season, but we'll try and make it interesting as possible today. So during the show, I'll present players that I feel like will be leaving the club, players that I feel like we should target or should be signing in the summer, and try to present the prices and seeing how much it will require from the club to sign those players. So yeah, we're doing a bit of fancy football today, I guess. So yeah, let's get into it. So let's talk about the current squad. Um, so as you can see on the screen, uh, our numbers are all maxed out. So in terms of the homegrown criteria, which is of course a very important thing to consider, especially when we're registering players for the Premier League squad. So as a club, we can register a maximum number of 17 non-homegrown players, but we also have to register a minimum of 8. So in total, you can register 25 players. Now, if, for example, you had 7 homegrown players, that basically means that you can only register up to 24 players. You can't have that 25th player because you haven't met the criteria of a minimum of 8 homegrown players. So the less homegrown players you have, the less number of squad players you can register in total. So currently, we've got 17 squad players and we've got 8 homegrown players. And under 21s, you don't have to register them, but I've presented them on the screen because these are players that have been in and around the team. So definitely worth mentioning as they might have a role to play in the future. Now, there might be a few names on the screen, especially in the homegrown section, that you're thinking, hang on, these guys were out on loan. Why are they presenting on the screen? So these players were registered when the submission was required. Because remember, the Premier League season starts mid-August. But after we had made that registration, those players were sent out on loan closer to the end of the window. So slightly cheeky from our part, but rules are rules, and we met the threshold in terms of registering those players. But some of those players have actually returned to the squad. So, for example, Harvey Davis, a goalkeeper, he literally returned a couple of weeks ago from his loan spell at Crawley Town. And you also have Owen Beck, who's on loan at Derby. Unfortunately, picked up an injury and wasn't heavily involved. So he's returned to Liverpool in order to regain full fitness. So he's back at the club. So that were the only sort of 2 players that I thought, a bit strange that they're still listed, but are technically at the club now. Now, in terms of Calvin Ramsey, I thought he may have been applicable to be registered as a homegrown player, but I did a bit of research. I believe that he's only played 2 seasons at the club, so therefore he doesn't qualify to be a fully homegrown player. And also, you have to do it within a certain age bracket. So once you've touched 21, the 3 years rule kind of goes out the window. So he's actually registered as a full squad player. Um, so it'll be interesting in terms of what his future holds for next season. So looking ahead, let's just paint the scenario that we have completed our season and all the players that were on loan for this season have returned on the 1st of July. So this will be the squad on the 1st of July, minus any new signings, because that's something we'll talk about later in the show. Um, I've also presented the players that have returned from loan, but also some players that were listed as under 21s have actually moved up to the homegrown criteria. The likes of Bastic, who at at the start of next season will be eligible as a homegrown player. As he's been at the club more than 3 years, and he will turn 22 in October. So he's met that sort of threshold of being listed as an under 21 player. The likes of Yaros, Mbaya, Stevenson, and Simicas will also return from their loans. Harvey Elliott has an asterisk to his name, as technically his loan spell should result to a permanent move as part of our agreement with Aston Villa. but in order to meet that requirement, he needs to play 10 games. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like that's going to be the case. So he looks like he may return to the club at the start of our preseason. And our goalkeeper Woodman only signed a 1-year contract with us last summer, but I believe he'll be given a year extension because does have the option in his contract. So I think that will be activated going forward. Now, these are my predicted outgoings. So the players in orange are players that I think will be sold, and the players that are highlighted in purple are the players I think will be loaned out. So we'll start from the full squad. Konate. So I personally don't think Konate will stay at the club. I think he leaves on a free transfer, unfortunately, as there hasn't really been any real update regarding his contract. And I actually think we've signed his replacement in Jeremy Jacquet, who will be joining us uh, at the start of next season. Ramsey can't seem to start a game, even with 5, 6 players ahead of him at right back. So clearly, he doesn't have a future at the club, and he's also got 1 year left of his contract. So I think this will be the time where we cash in. And if he's barely played for us, there's no reason to keep him on board. He takes up one of our non-homegrown player listings, and because of that, if he was a homegrown player, maybe he would have been kept on board from a strategic point of view. But because he doesn't, I think he'll be shipped out in the summer. Unpopular opinion, but I think we should cash in on McAllister this summer. I think he's had a poor season, but his stock is still relatively high. So I think the likes of Real Madrid, who have held a strong interest in the player over the years, would be interested in his services. So maybe this would be the time to move him on. Endo, unfortunately, picked up a serious injury a couple of weeks ago. So we don't know the extent of the layoff. How long will he be out for? If he's managed to regain fitness at the start of preseason, I think he'll be sold. If not, and it's a long-term injury where he's out for months and months and months, uh, he'll end up staying at the club. But then I think he'll be released next summer as his contract also expires in 2027. And you've also got Mohamed Salah. Now, unfortunately, I also think um, this could be Salah's final season at the club. It's not what I personally want. I would love for him to stay for another year. But with how things panned out after the Leeds game a few months ago, I feel like the relationship with Slot was broken down, and it may have been repaired. But I feel like the hierarchy will still keep that in mind and think, maybe he's a bit of a disruptive character, or Salah has decided, maybe it's time to move on, and we'll try and weigh the options where if he makes the move this summer, the the club that he loves, which he has alliterated quite a few times, which is Liverpool, will be able to get some sort of reward or a transfer fee if he was to leave a year early. So I think that might be something on the cards, and also the likelihood that if he was to move on, he would end up signing for a club in Saudi Arabia, and one of the clubs that's strongly interested in signing his signature is Al Ittihad, and they are desperate to sign a superstar after they sold Karim Benzema a few weeks ago. So I think, unfortunately, this could be the summer where Mohamed Salah departs from Liverpool. In terms of Chiesa, I think the writing's on the wall for the Italian. He does not have a future at the club, so he will be moved on as well. So that's the squad. Now, in terms of the players that listed in the homegrown section, Reece Williams is still there. I don't know what he's still doing there, to be fair. That's not me being disrespectful, but his contract expires in a few months' time, so he'll be released on a free. Owen Beck, talented player. He's had some good spells over the last 2, 3 years, but I don't think he is Liverpool quality. So therefore, I think he will be moved on this summer. Bajtic has struggled a lot in the last year or two with injuries. Um, and due to his impact for Las Palmas last season, I feel like there is a bit of weight in terms of his popularity, or people still value him as a talented player. So therefore, I think this might be the perfect time to cash in, especially with 1 year remaining in his contract. I think he can move on and possibly get a move to a team's La Liga, for example. So maybe this is the summer where he's moved on. Yaros signed a long-term contract last season before he joined Ajax on loan. But I think this could be a time where we also cash in on him, as I'm sure he'll want to play first team football after a spell with Ajax, and he's played quite a few games for them. So I think this will be a time where we cash in on him as well. Lucas Stevenson, who's out on loan in the Scottish League, uh, has had a decent spell there. So maybe we can cash in on him as well. Elliot, who I mentioned earlier on, even if he doesn't sign for Villa, I don't think he has a future under the current regime. So therefore, he'll also be moved on this summer. Simicast will be turning 30 in a few months' time and has 1 year remaining of his contract as well. So I don't think he has a future at the club either, and will be moved on. In terms of the under 21s, unpopular opinion, but I think Rio and Gamoa will benefit from moving out on loan. I think currently he's showing that he's too good for the under 21s. And in my opinion, I think he deserves a run in the first team. But this coach doesn't seem to think that he's ready or doesn't have the trust to start him in any games, especially in the Premier League. So therefore, I think for his own development, it'll be best for him to go elsewhere and play regular football week in, week out. And I think it will benefit Liverpool as he will return a better player of playing regular football. So I think that would be the best scenario for Real and Gomorrah. And just in case he needs a long spell where he can get regular game time. Quite similar to what we did with Harvey Elliott, where he went to Blackburn and he or a team in the Premier League even. I do feel like he's good enough to do that. But as long as the club is able to give him weekly games, where he's in the starting line most of the occasions, I think that's the best route for him, rather than sitting on the bench or just being one of many squad players, because he's not going to excel in that manner. So I think that would be the right move for him. Dan's unfortunately has picked up quite a few injuries in recent times. Uh, but if he's able to get fully fit, I think a loan move will be the best thing for his development as well. So this is my predicted outgoings for this coming summer. Now, let's talk money. Of course, this is more estimates and figures that you've seen online in terms of transfer market, all that sort of stuff. So, don't quote me on these figures, but it's just a rough summary and just to kind of, play the game, I guess. We're trying to get an idea in terms of how much Liverpool will generate in terms of a revenue and how much we can go on and spend on signing our players. So, Konate, unfortunately, will be gone, in my opinion. I think he'll be uh, joining that team, unfortunately, on a free transfer. So he won't be, giving Liverpool any money in terms of his sale. So that's a situation there. I've probably gone a bit, ahead of myself, thinking we're gonna get 5 million from Ramsey, but hey, we can all dream. McAllister, I think we can fetch a decent amount for the Argentine midfielder. I think 60, 70 million would be a good benchmark for us to obtain that kind of money. So I've written 70 million down. Salah, I think due to the interest from Saudi, I think they'll be willing to spend big money on a player. Even though he's got 1 year left, I think they'll be willing to spend 50, 60 million pounds. So I've gone for the latter. Chiesa, I think we can easily fetch 10 million for him from an Italian side, most likely. Reece Williams, as I mentioned, his contract expires in the next few months, so he'll be out on a free. Oren Beck, I think he could definitely get a move in the championship, maybe in the Scottish League, because he did really well there for Dundee United. So maybe, a move to that caliber of a team would suit him. And I think 4 or 5 million would be a decent amount to get for him. Bajtic, I think we'll be able to get a decent amount for him, possibly from a La Liga team. I think 8 million is not too excessive. So I think that's a sort of generous amount there. Yaros, I probably should have doubled that. I think we could easily get a good amount of money, especially if we've got teams like Ajax that want to sign the player. Maybe we could double that. But for now, we'll leave it at 5 million. Stevenson, I think he's having a good spell at Motherwell in the Scottish League, so maybe 3 million for him. Harvey Elliott, I still feel like despite a poor decision of joining Aston Villa, I still feel like he has a lot of admirers. I think he's a fantastic player. I think a move away from the Premier League would be the best decision for him. A team in the Bundesliga would make the perfect sense. He was very close to joining a Red Bull Leipzig. I think that would have been a great destination for him. And they're still technically after as Xavi, Simon's replacement, or maybe a Yan Diomande moves on, could be a potential target for Liverpool. Maybe we can even do a deal in some sort. So um, he could come in there and take up his position on the right wing at Leipzig. So I still feel like we can get a decent amount for him for 30, 35 million is what I'm going for. Simicast, 10 million probably seems a bit excessive, but we'll leave it because I feel like I've undervalued Yaros there. So, it kind of balances out. And Endo, if he's fit enough to move on and join a new team, I think we'll sell him at 5 million. Doesn't really show the value of the player because I feel like he's worth a lot more than 5 million. But I think with his current situation where he's only got 1 year left, I think we'll probably get a minimal fee for him. So in terms of revenue generated, that equals to 220 million pounds. The big question, which I'm sure you're probably thinking, who should Liverpool sign? And what is Ozzy's take here? Who should Liverpool sign? You're not gonna like it, but I think we're gonna have another busy summer like we did last season, and I think we will be signing 7 new players. I know that's a lot to do in one summer, but I think this will be the summer where it pretty much shapes us up for the next 5 years. That's the way I'm looking at it. So you need this kind of windows to do a lot of business and try and reshape the squad and sign players that are successors to current experienced players in the team. So I'll go into detail in terms of why I've selected these players and where they fit in the squad. The first player that I'm going for is Schlotterbeck. Now, for me, one of the best defenders out there, in my opinion. Um, I think be, he would be a player that will be very sought after. He's only got 1 year left in his contract, so that's a plus point where we don't have to pay an excessive fee. But then again, that also means that there will be a lot of interest in acquiring his services. So I feel like we need to go all out and try and get Schlotterbeck through the door. In my eyes, he'll join the team and partner Van Dijk, but I see him as a long-term successor to Van Dijk whenever he moves on from the club. So this signing is vital. I don't feel like he'll cost too much in this current market. So I feel like he's definitely a player that we need to look for. Another player, technically we've already signed him, so I still have to discuss him to an extent. I think he's been signed as Konate's replacement. Therefore, I believe Konate won't sign a new contract. If he does, then it kind of changes the outlook of the expenditure. Maybe we don't go for a Schlotterbeck now, and maybe we sign a player like him next summer instead. But what I'm currently feeling, I feel like uh, Konate will move on. So Schlotterbeck comes in to replace him. But I see this guy being the long-term replacement for Konate, and I see the Schlotterbeck being the long-term replacement for Van Dijk. So technically speaking, we have a Schlotterbeck and a Jacquet partnership for years to come. That's the way the club may be envisioning. So that's what I'm, viewing right now as well. So that could be a possibility for us. Now, this one I think will definitely split opinions, as we already have two right backs in our team. We have Conor Bradley and we have Jeremy Frimpong, who are both very talented players on their day. But due to the injury issues, I think maybe we should try and sign a right back. And the reason why I've picked, I should say, Gavario Reed is because he is a player with huge potential. And I think if he continues to develop the way he has done, he could easily become one of the best fullbacks for years to come. He's that kind of talented player, in my opinion. In terms of pros and cons, he's, of course, um, I think he came through the ranks at final when Slot was there, so Slot will definitely be aware of him. I think he even gave him his debut at the club, so there's definitely understanding there. But from his stylistic point of view, he's the modern day fullback, really quick, really energetic, attacks that byline very, very well, whips in fantastic crosses, but more importantly, defensively, he's very, very good in one-on-one duels, and still has room to grow. So for me, when a player like that is available in the market, you have to try and go all out and sign him. I think he's 19, 20 years of age. Bayern Munich are very, very much strongly linked with him, and it looks like he's actually um, destined to sign for the Bundesliga side there. So why not we spoil the party like we did last summer with Florian Wirtz and get uh, one of their main targets over the line and hijack that deal. So that's the way I'm looking at it. So for me, this is more of an opportunistic signing where a player of his quality is available. So I feel like this could be a player that could come in, and he might not settle in straight away. We can, and the good thing about his position in the team would be that we don't have to make him first choice right away. We can ease him in. He can get used to the way the team plays from our style of play. He can get accustomed to the pace of the league, the physicality of the league, and when he's ready, that's when we can slot him in the first team. There won't be any huge pressure for him because we already have two right backs ahead of him. Of course, if both players are injured again, like they have done or have been quite a lot of times this season, then he will have to, step up and play for the first team. But at least he'll be given that preseason. At least he'll be given the early months of the season to settle down and get accustomed to the way the Premier League is played. And once he's in tune, once he's ready, then I feel like this would be the right time to add him to the mix. And of course, Bradley, he can challenge for a right back position. And I think Frimpong is multifunctional. He can cover for right back, but also can play right wing or as a wing back if we're playing a different formation. So Frimpong will still be utilized in different roles. So therefore, we've got plenty of depth on that right hand side, uh, even if we sign Gavario Reed. Um, Another player that I'm not sure a lot of you will be familiar with, and to be fair, I wasn't too familiar with him until like a couple of weeks ago, and that is Ghana international Yurinki. So he is a defensive midfielder player, a type of profile I've been wanting us to sign for quite some time. Uh, Still very raw. He's not the finished article, but what he does bring is aggression in that middle of the park. He's physical, great tackling, great interception. Has a defensive mind frame where he's trying to close up shop, but in terms of his technical ability, very good on the ball. Um, Decent in terms of passing range, can shoot as well. He can even cover at right back. He's played for Ghana at right back on numerous occasions. So he's a player that I feel like would be a low risk signing. If it works out, fantastic. If it doesn't, I think he can be moved on, and we could probably regain some sort of return from a financial point of view. So I feel like he would be a good signing for us. I don't think he'll be a signing straight into the starting lineup. I see him on paper being Endo's replacement, and with certain games, you need this type of profile of a player. I was watching a video online, and there was a Ghanaian journalist who's, of course, followed this career quite a bit, compared him to Michael Essien. So, that kind of player would be, fantastic in our team. And Michael Essien was a player that should have actually signed for Liverpool back in the day, but that's another conversation for another day. So if we can get, an Essien 2.0 here, I'm all for it. So yeah, he looks like a decent prospect, and I don't think he would cost too much either. A player that wouldn't surprise many of us that I've mentioned him here is Adam Wharton. He's definitely going to be very sought after in the summer. I think the most likely destination will be a team based in the north of England because apparently, he wants to move back to where he grew up. He's not really fond of living in South London, which is a bit of a shame because that's where I'm from. So he wants to move back up top, up north, I should say. And Liverpool have definitely held a strong interest in the player of the years. Man City as well, but do Man City need him right now? Don't think so. I think they're quite well stocked in that midfield position. So I feel like this could be a sign that we can look towards. And I don't think he'll cost too much, as in when I say too much, I'm not seeing it where it's, close to 80, 90 million. I think it'll be a lot less. So, let's see if Liverpool are even willing to speak to Palace after what happened with Mark Gay. But, business is business. Bygone has to be, bygone and put to one side, and we have to try and get this player over the line. 'Cause I feel like he would be a fantastic addition to the squad. In fact, I would see him as McAllister's replacement, where he is the deep playmaker in this team. So I feel like he'll have an important role going forward. So for me, this would be a fantastic sign if we can get this over the line. Now, this is the dream sign. No surprise here. If Mohamed Salah leaves, I've said it before on previous shows, there's only one player that I would like us to sign, and that is Michael Olise. For me, he has everything in his locker to excel at Liverpool. My guess would be that he'd want to come back to the Premier League as it's the place to be. Let's not kid ourselves. Or I'm not trying to be biased, but that is a situation there. Um, he will probably cost a lot of money, but I feel like with his previous experience at Crystal Palace, already played in the Premier League, it's a no-brainer. He'll come in, settle in right away, and you know we'll probably have other French players in the team if my scenario is correct here, that can help, in terms of him being used to people from, his home country, I guess. But also, he'll be surrounded by players that, I'm sure he'll get along well with as well. So for me, um, Elise would be a no-brainer. Of course, if he's not a realistic target, I think Yan Diamonde could be an alternative target for us. But if it was my choice and we had the choice to, or we had the opportunity to sign him, I have to put Elise on the screen because when I did this show last year, thinking about targets ahead of our summer, um, I didn't even mention Florian Wirtz because I thought it was a very unrealistic target. So, last year showed me that anything's possible when it comes to Liverpool. So that's why I've had to put Elise here. I try and put that positivity out in the universe, and hopefully, we'll see him in a Liverpool shirt next season. This shouldn't be a surprise, especially if you follow my show, then you've been watching me over the months and years, or however long it may be. This is a player that I really, really rate. Um, I see him coming into the squad as a upgrade to Cody Gakpo. Of course, if you remember my scenario earlier on, I said that Ryan Gamoa to go out on loan. I feel like that would be great for his development. And I think a player like Barcola would be dangerous in our team. Of course, there might be some concerns, when we play against low blocks, can he, be adventurous and take on the fullback? I think he can. I think, he's that type of player that, even if he's, marked by 2, 3 players, I think he can skip past them and cause havoc on the flanks. And he has variation in his play. He can cut inside and attack from the middle. He can go out wide and really tap that byline. So I feel like he has variation in his play, multifunctional. He's not just a player that plays left wing like Gakpo. Gakpo predominantly plays one position. Barcola can easily play on the left, can easily play on the right. And in recent weeks, he's actually played up top for PSG. So he's a player that can play across the front line. And I feel like he would be a fantastic addition. A player that I feel like we should have signed last summer. So hopefully, Liverpool can get it right this time round and sign him in this upcoming summer. So this would be a fantastic signing, in my opinion, for Liverpool. Now, how much are these players going to cost? That's the big question. And is it realistic? Only time will tell. But I think roughly, Schlotterbeck would cost around 40 million pounds. I think maybe even 35, especially with it being his final year of his contract. So normally you can get players around 30, 35, 40 million pounds. I think maybe 40 because there is a lot of interest from the likes of Real Madrid again. So maybe that'll up the price a little bit. So 40, I'm going to go with that benchmark. Jacquet, that deal has already been agreed. 55 million pounds sounds like a lot of money, but hopefully it will pay off. Gavira Reed, I think we can get him for around 20 million pounds. I don't think it would be an extortionate sort of price, especially coming from the Eredivisie. So I feel like 20 million should be a sufficient amount. I think Adam Wharton we can get for about 65 million. The money that we would have um, gained in this scenario from the sale of McAllister, which will be about 65, 70 million as well. We basically like for like replacement there. Urenki coming in for 20 million. I think that is a realistic. I think maybe we can get him for a bit less, but I'm just going for a ballpark figure there. Elise, I think Bayern Munich are going to try and milk it as much as possible and try and get top dollar for him. So I think we'll end up paying about 90 to 100 million pounds. I think that will be the range. Um, there was a rumor circling that he's got a release clause of about 65 million pounds. I don't think that's true, unless I've misread it. I don't think that is the case. I think they're going to hold on to their player, but at the same time know that there is a price tag that if it's met, they will be willing to talk business. I think Elise would cost around that kind of price range. And I think Barcola would cost around 70 million pounds. I believe he's only got a couple years remaining of his contract. Um, yeah, so because of that, the transfer fee shouldn't be too crazy. So I think 70 million would be the right amount to sign the French winger. Now, if my maths is correct, in total, that's going to cost us 370 million. So let's do the maths. Outgoings 220, and income is 370. So 370 minus 220 is 150 million pound net spend. So come on, are you telling me that Liverpool can't spend 150 million out of the pocket? I think they can. So I don't think it's too crazy, but drop a comment and let me know if I'm just playing too much fantasy football while playing career mode right now. Feel free to let me know. So this is how the squad will look, and it's very interesting because the players that I've listed as potential signings, they're all under 21, or a lot of them are. So Jacquet is 20, Reed is 19, I believe. Urenki is 20 years old. Wharton is above that age, but he will fall into that homegrown bracket, which is a plus point because I think whoever we sign this summer in whatever the position, I think the focus will be to sign at least one homegrown player. So I think Wharton will fit the bill. In terms of our non-homegrown section, we've got only 14 players listed. So Schlotterbeck will come in to potentially replace Konate in that position there. You've got the likes of Endo gone, who's replaced by Urinki on the other side. Um, Wharton's homegrown, so we don't need to list him. And then you've got Chiesa, who's sold on paper. I guess we don't really have a direct replacement for him. Um, but it may be an area that we could look into. We've got 3 vacant spaces there. Olise replaces Salah in the mix, and Barcola is an addition to this squad as well. So only 14 players listed, 3 still up for grabs. So we could actually add more players. If Liverpool wanted to go all out, or we can just leave it as it is, because I think by next season. So when I say next season, I'm referring to 2027/2028 season, the likes of Jacquet, Reed, Urenki will be probably touching that threshold of 21, 22 years of age, and they would have to be registered as a non-homegrown squad player. So then they can kind of, fit in the bill and then uh, pretty much take up one of those vacant spaces in that criteria. So that's the way I'm looking at it. So there's a lot of noise amongst Liverpool fans that, oh, we've got to do a lot of business. We've got to sell a lot of players. We don't have too many homegrown spaces left. But, if you sell the players that I've mentioned earlier on, who I don't think, you know, McAllister and Salah will probably be debatable, but the likes of um, Ramsey, of course, he's definitely going. Chiesa is definitely going. I didn't mention Robertson. So in my scenario here, I would actually like to keep Robertson. Maybe sign him for another year extension. I don't think it would be wise to sell him at this stage because I feel like experience is vital in our squad. And if we were just to sign another young and up and coming fullback to challenge Kirkes, I don't think that gives us a lot of assurances from a defensive standpoint. So I feel like another extension would be the wise thing to do. So let's see, if that was to happen. If not, then we have to sign another left back. So that's 8 players in total. So you guys are probably thinking I'm going nuts by saying 7 players. But if you're looking at the squad right now, it's not too crazy to say out loud. So this is my current squad. So, drop a comment and let me know what you guys think. I can see there's quite a few comments here, so I'm gonna go through the comments. But before I do that, I'm gonna present the squad or the potential squad for next season in a graphic, so then you can see for yourselves in terms of how the squad will look like. So in goal, we've got Alisson Becker and Mamadashvili. On the right, I've listed Gavayo Reed and I've listed Bradley as the two fullbacks. Virgil Jacquet. So Virgil, I've said this quite a few times over the years. I don't want to see Virgil play on the right side because he's played as a left-sided fullback and he's been elite, to say the least, over the years. But we have to think one step ahead. We have to try and sign a long-term successor to him, and I think Schlotterbeck will be that guy. And I think Schlotterbeck is such a great talent that he will literally come into the lineup straight away. So therefore, Virgil van Dijk will have to adjust and play on the right-sided position of centre back, which will not be an alien position for him. I've watched interviews of him over the years where he's mentioned he started his career as a right-sided centre back and then moved on the left side when he played for the likes of Celtic and Southampton. But in Holland, that's where he played. So um, you know what? It could be looked at in a different way where maybe, Virgil stays for a lot longer than just one more year after this season. Maybe, if he's able to form a great partnership with Schlotterbeck, he technically reinvents himself as a right side centre back. You know, can you imagine having a player like Virgil van Dijk and Schlotterbeck as your combination? Because, that's two ball playing defenders. And, in terms of their defensive attributes, not many are going to get past him either. So, as a pairing, that's quite a formidable pairing. So that's something I would like to see. I think that'll be very strong. In terms of Leone, I don't know the extent of his injury in terms of when he'll return, but the rumor is that he could return for preseason. So based on that, I think he will be one of our four centre backs listed. So Leone, Jacquet, and I'm still keeping Joe Gomez. I think Joe Gomez will stay next season, and maybe he'll leave on a free. That's just the way Liverpool do things, I guess. And I feel like a player like Joe Gomez will be vital for this next year, um, as he can cover the defensive line. But also, we've got so many new centre backs in the youth setup. We've signed about 3 or 4 in January alone. If one or two of them makes that transition towards the first team, they can take up Joe Gomez's position when his contract expires. So for the time being, we've got protection for the back line there. And then one of those youngsters, if they excel, then you've already got a ready-made replacement for Joe Gomez, if that makes sense. So we don't have to spend money in the near future. So that's the way I'm looking at it. And in terms of the left, Kirkes Robertson, I think that would be the balance on that left-hand side. Now, in terms of the double pivot, some fans will disagree, but I quite like the combination of Gravenberch and Szoboszlai. I think with Gravenberch, his instructions need to be that you are the defensive midfielder. Therefore, you need to play deeper rather than you having a free role and playing box to box, because that's something I've not liked this season. I think if he's played in a more of a structure, he can definitely clean up shop like he did for us last season, which of course led to us for of winning the Premier League. So I think as a combination, it works well. And Szoboszlai, quite frankly, is not droppable. So he needs to start in this team. And on paper, Adam Wharton would be the player that would be on the bench, but not week in, week out. It will be a rotation between the three, quite heavily, in my opinion. And then I think Jones will be the fourth choice center midfield in this scenario. But on paper, I've kind of put Urenki here, just because it gives you that defensive point of view. But in terms of the gaffer, what he wants to do, it will be where Jones is fourth choice and then Urenki is fifth choice and Trainioni is sixth, and we've also got McConnell as well. So we've got plenty of depth in that position. So that's the way I'm seeing it. But also in terms of Florian Wirtz, we won't sign a direct backup for him. So I feel like Jones can be on paper the backup for Florian Wirtz, and I think he can play that role really well, like he did when he was a youngster for Liverpool all those years ago. So I think on paper that makes the most sense as well. On the right hand side, Elise, and I've got Frimpong as the backup, just to kind of cover the right wing position. But Police is probably one of those players like Salah who will not get rotated a lot. I feel like he'll definitely have a stake in his team. Or we might sign another player, as we do have quite a few spots for the non-homegrown quota. but I didn't want to get ahead of myself and just give you guys the chopping list. So I thought let me try and make it as realistic as possible. So I think Frimpong as a backup on paper isn't a bad thing. And on the other side, you've got Gakpo, who's the backup for the left wing, and I see Barcola starting on that left wing. So for me, he's an upgrade because he's more direct, he's more unpredictable. He's not just a cut and shoot type of guy like Gakpo. He'll actually cause havoc on that left hand side, and I think he'll add goals to his game as well. And then you've got Isak and Ekatike, both of them fighting for that starting role. So I feel like this is plenty of squad depth. Maybe one or two. Maybe we could sign an actual right winger. Let's say Reed is not a target for us, and Frimpong and Bradley are still regarded as your two right backs. As I mentioned earlier in the show, Urinki, the signing that we would make in this scenario, he can play right back, so he'll be covered for that role. Um, so rather than putting Soboslai there, maybe we play him in that role a bit more, as he's played there international level and club level. Um, and then maybe we sign a direct backup for Elise, maybe a Yan Diomande as well. But it'll be very hard to present that project to a player like Diomande, especially if you've got Barcola and Elise coming through the door. So that's why I feel like maybe this season we just do it like this and see what the future holds. But maybe we get another right winger in the following season. So you can tell I've been thinking ahead. Maybe I should apply for Richard Hughes as well. Clearly, I know what I'm doing here. Um, and yeah, but in terms of the other roles, I feel like we've got plenty of cover. So yeah, feel free to drop a comment. Let me know what you think of my predictive squad for next season. So yeah, thank you for listening to my my TED talk about the future of Liverpool Football Club. So what I'll do now is I'll go through the comments and yeah, we can take it from there. Ball said, "Big up Aussie boy, big up Ball. Hope you're doing well." He said the only transfer we need is Arnold slot out. I agree. I probably should have started with that on the top of the show, but I'm thinking more about the players on the pitch rather than the gaffer. Thoughts on the Vinny situation? For me, it's crazy how people are jumping to conclusions when no one knows what happened. It's a tricky one because I don't think Vinicius Junior would have reacted the way he did had you know something was not said that was offensive. Because this is not the first time Vinicius Junior has encountered this on the pitch. It's happened numerous times in La Liga. It's happened in the Champions League before as well. And it comes to a point where what do you do in that situation? Now, I'm not here to promote violence, but if a player is racially abused, they have to take physical action, in my opinion. Because if someone spoke to me like that on the street, rest assured, I am responding a certain way. I'm not just going to let that person walk away and get away with it. So there has to be something that has to be done because clearly the authorities are not doing anything about it. They're not finding the players. They're not letting because in this scenario, you have to set an example. You have to punish someone here, whether it's the player that's said the racial slur, or you impact the club's involvement in that competition. A drastic action needs to take place. Until that doesn't happen, this will continue to happen, unfortunately. So I think the player, I've forgotten his name now. So I'm sure someone in the chat will remind me. He's a coward for doing this and saying whatever he had to say. He knew that people will lip read and they'll figure out what he said. So he knew what he was doing. So for me, he's an absolute coward. And if I was Vinicius Junior, you know what? Maybe he should have walked off the pitch, and I think the players would have followed suit as well, and the game could have been abandoned. That's another action that could be done, but of course there will be a lot of peer pressure to not allowing that to happen. But something has to happen now, and it has to be. Well, unfortunately, the player that is involved in this scenario has to take it on their own hands. Whether it's that them assaulting the person, you know, don't know. It's one of those crazy situations. 'Cause I'm thinking, if I'm in those shoes and someone spoke to me like that, yeah, I'm reacting a certain way because I'm built different. So I'm not trying to promote myself as a violent person, but you have to defend yourself in those situations. And when you're racially abused like that, and unfortunately, Vinicius Junior had it a lot, and that's why there's always rumors about him moving away from La Liga due to the the noise that he gets from the crowd, the abuse he gets from the players. I'm talking racially here. I'm not talking just normal, you know. trash talk on the pitch. I'm talking racially abused here. So this is a big deal. It really is. But I don't know. It doesn't look like UEFA are going to do anything about it. So maybe it comes to a point where the player has to take it in their own hands. That's the way I see it, unfortunately. Um, Slot's comments today as well. It has been a good few days off without hearing that board frauds comments. I'll be honest with you, Bo. I forgot that he did a press conference today. I thought it was scheduled for Friday, so I actually haven't watched it yet. Um, so yeah, bear with me. I'll you've even asked me in the comment below a preview tomorrow. So yes, I will do the preview tomorrow. So I'll watch it over tomorrow, give you my take, and then we can also preview the game as well. So yeah, I've not actually watched the press conference. I don't even know what was said. So we'll leave that until tomorrow, and then I'll give you my opinion in terms of what happened. Ozzy, what is your honest opinion? Will Slot be here next season if we finish in sixth? If we finish in sixth place, no, that is not acceptable. Even if he wins an FA Cup, that's still not acceptable. If he wins the Champions League, it depends on Richard Hughes because you know the rumor, right? Apparently, he's going to move on and sign for Al Hilal in Saudi Arabia. So if he goes over there, then maybe that opens the door of us signing a new sporting director. And I'm sure they'll have their own ideas that maybe they want to appoint someone else ahead of Slot. So it kind of depends on that now, if I'm being honest with you, in this scenario. But for me, the season has to be assessed in terms of where we finish. If we finish top four, that's great. I'm not sounding like a privileged fan here, but that should be the minimum at Liverpool Football Club. But if we're not winning any silverware, that's a problem as well because it's not just us finishing fourth or fifth wherever we finish, and that's it. It has to be looked at as why did we finish fourth and fifth? Oh, we lost 9 and 12 in October, November. Things like that need to be looked at. You have to look at it from an overall perspective rather than just recency bias, in my opinion. So no, for me, I think because Xabi Alonso is a free agent now, I feel like they will make that decision to appoint him next summer. That's the way I'm looking at it. But maybe that's me being more wishful than logical in this approach. Delulu Steve says, Ozdabi or Delulu, I hope you're well. He said, don't tell me Arsenal are going to bottle again. Oh, they are. They are. This is their symbol right now. They're going to bottle the league. 100%. I've said it. And I still believe it. They will. Are you surprised that we've picked a bit of form over the last few games? Not really, to be fair. I don't think our brand of football has, improved drastically or anything of that nature. Um, but I think there's a bit more sort of stability in terms of team selection. I still feel like there's a few players producing stinkers week in, week out. I won't name names, but I'm sure you know who I'm talking about. Um, but there are other players that have actually stepped up, the likes of McAllister, Gravenberch. They've played a lot better, and that's improved our sort of security in the middle of the park. Wirtz is looking like a different player. He's looking like the Leverkusen Wirtz in recent weeks. Ekitike is on fire right now. Salah has been quiet in the last few weeks, but in the last game or two, he's done really well. So he's showing his form once again. People saying he's having a terrible season. He's got 15 GA. It's not that bad compared to Saka, who hasn't even touched those numbers yet. Less said the better. So for me, even if he's not hit the heights that we expect from Salah, he's still contributed to an extent. So players are playing better. Of course, there's still that uncertainty at right back, so we have to shift and change quite a bit. Unfortunately, suppose that's going to play that for the foreseeable future. It looks like right now, but touch wood, we don't pick up any injuries and continue this form going forward. Because all I care about is Liverpool finishing in the top four slash top five and winning one of the cups. I think that would be a decent end to the season. So yeah, let's see what happens. Um, Steve says, "How on earth is Reece still collecting a check from the clubs after 3 seasons?" I have no idea, Steve. Quite frankly, no one wanted to take him on loan or wanted to buy him. So yeah, unfortunately, he's just there, isn't he? Um, Does Amaranello have a future at the club of Oz? No, I don't think he does. I think next season, sorry, I forgot to actually mention him. I think next season he'll be loaned out. I think that would be the right move for him to play maybe Championship or League One level and see how he does there, and then we can kind of monitor his development and take it from there. So I think a loan move would be good for his development because there'll be players that I feel like have played for under 21s and maybe they just need to be challenged and play, no offense, real men's football where it's a bit more physical. So I think that would be the best route for the young defender. Steve, that does Rio deserve a long-term extension? He's the future at living for the club. He does, but under this coach, I'm not sure. Because he's not giving him a chance. I feel like he should have at least played a few games from the start so far this season, in my opinion. Especially when Gakpo's been stinking up the place. He definitely needs to be playing or starting a few more games, I would say. I'm not saying start week in, week out, but give him a chance to at least stake a claim and not just play him for like 5, 10 minutes. I don't think that's acceptable. So I think, with Rio, I think he's already signed a contract, it's a professional contract. I think, if the club still don't think he's ready, then a loan move has to be done next year. Whether that's in the Championship or the Premier League is debatable. I would like him to stay in England. I don't want him to go abroad. I think it's best for him to get used to English football, which is obviously that's where he's from. But I'm saying that's the development route that we should take with him, and then a season afterwards we can bring him back. So yeah, we'll just take it from there. I think that would be the best route. But for me personally, um, even in this scenario where I've got Barcola, so you're not surprised Barcola. Like, yeah, Barcola's my guy. You should know that. So even in this scenario, I'd actually sell Gakpo and use that money to finance the move for Barcola and have Barcola and Rio challenging for that left wing position. I think that would be the way to go. And the thing is, let's say Rio really develops and looks like a world beater on the left hand side. Barcola can still play on either wing and play up top as well, so he'll still be a very important squad player in that regards. Whereas with Gakpo, he's pretty much stuck on that left wing, doesn't really change. Rio showed in the previous game he can play on the right hand side as well. So for me, that would be the way I would do it. But I don't think Gakpo will be so. So that's why I haven't presented that scenario. Although it would make sense to be fair. Double D, big up Double D. As always, he says, Alan, that's the Alan from Palmeiras, right? So yeah, there was a rumor circulating today regarding a move that we're close to agreeing a 30 million pound move for the attacker. So we'll speak about him tomorrow because it came to my attention just before I went live. I'm not seeing much of him, so I'll be watching a few compilations after the show, see how good he is, or see how he is in general, and then we could talk about him a bit more tomorrow. Uh, but we got to take a pinch of salt. We've always been linked with players from Brazil. Remember Alan? Not Alan. Remember we had Alan years ago, didn't we? And then remember Andre from a couple of years ago. He ended up going to Wolves in the end. We thought, he was coming to Liverpool. He had certain fans doing um no fans, certain content creators doing watch alongs for for his team when they were in um the South American competition there. So yeah, crazy times. But yeah, I don't not too much of him. If you do know, feel free to let me know in the chat. Rumors Mamadashvili may be loaned out. That's interesting. Then that means we'll have to sign another keeper. Too much shopping and changing. But let's see. Let's see what happens. Bosses hate that we are turning to a buying club instead of a development club just because Slot needs big players to bail him out. You agree, Oz? I hear you. I feel like there needs to be a mix. I wouldn't quite say just focus on developing players because sometimes youngsters take a bit more longer to do it. And let's be honest, we're a Liverpool Football Club. We need to be challenging all honors. So therefore, we need to have players that are ready made as well now. So for me, there has to be a balance between the two. And I feel like we've got players like Rio who should be given more of a chance. Then there's, but what I will say is we've got a lot of talent coming through our youth, which you will definitely know about, Bold. So over the next few years, I think let's see how they develop, and let's hope that they are given an opportunities in the team because there's a lot of players in the squad that again older as well. So there's no guarantee that these players will stick around. And we've got players that are on the fringes; they'll be moved on. So players will be replaced, and there should be a pathway for these young players to come in and stake a claim in his team. So yeah, I think you have to find the right balance. I think that's the way to go. I don't think you can just get big name signings all the time. I don't think you can just sign or develop youth players and expect them to be well beaten straight away as well. So it's just finding the fine line and the right balance. I think that's what is the right ingredients for a successful club. Uh, Steve's asks, Oz, don't shame me, bro, but I want big cars. Brian Broby at striker slash right wing. Um, he's a decent player, to be fair. But I feel like because we've got Isak and Ekitike, I don't think we'll be signing a striker anytime soon. They pretty much cover us for me. So yeah, I think we're pretty much sorted there. And I don't really see him more as a right wing. I think he's better as a striker because he's got great hold up play, physical, can attack the channels, but I feel like striker is his main position to be fair. Bo's comment to say we used to be different than Galacticos, not the Liverpool. I love this. I hear you. But I think, we just have to be a little bit patient because there's quite a few youngsters coming through. I think they will be knocking on the door in the next 2, 3 years. So yeah, hopefully we'll get some of them coming through, and hopefully they'll be in the first team in due course. Bo says Urinki is the type of signing Liverpool is about, in my opinion, not Barcola. Elise say, I hear you. Um, based on rumors, this Allen fella that Double D mentioned above, apparently he's a right winger. So is he Salah's replacement? I don't know. I feel like for a player like Salah, we have to get someone ready made, and I think Elise is the way to go. Barcola, as much as I rate him, that's my guy right there. But um, that's a signing we don't have to get right now. If I'm being honest, we've got Rio, got Gakpo there, but I would like to see Gakpo as a squad player. So the only way we don't sign a Barcola is if Rio is the main starting left winger, which I don't think he will be under this manager. Under the new coach, maybe a different scenario, but currently I don't see that being the scenario. So that's why I feel like it's important to actually give him a few more starts because that way we can see how far he's developed. It's all good and well having these cameos off the bench 10, 15 minutes. Even if he does a 10 out of 10 in those cameos, I need to see it from the start. I need to see, are you ready to do it from the beginning? Are you able to start week in, week out? Are you able to handle the pressure of playing for Liverpool Football Club? We've not seen that yet. So that's the thing that I'm looking at going forward. Double D's mentioned Prestiani. Let's have a look at Prestiani. Prestiani. That's the name. Yes, thank you, Double D. Yeah, Gianluca Prestiani. Yeah, probably shouldn't mention his name out loud, but yeah, I do appreciate you presenting it on the screen. Yeah, one absolute idiot he is. Um, why has it always been he getting it though? It's never coming on Shumini, which I don't understand it, Ozzy. I think with Vinny, it's because he's an attacking player. I'm not saying just because of a positional sense of view. It's more so, he's a very flamboyant, skillful player who plays with a lot of flair. And if your team is getting smashed by Real Madrid 5-0 and my guy's still doing step overs and flicks and tricks, that's going to irritate the opposite fans. So because of that, they can't contain themselves. Unfortunately, they have to resort to racial abuse to just affect that player's momentum. So that's how it is. The Shuameni, the Camavingas, they're DMs, they're centre midfielders. So they're not going to, you know, get that sort of attraction from the opponent fan base and, get that kind of heat unless they're doing crazy skills in the middle of the park. But because of the way he plays and how effective he is. They always have to pick someone, and that unfortunately that is the player that gets them rattled because he's the one that's twisting and turning, nutmegging people left, right, and center. So that's where unfortunately he gets the abuse. So it's not right. I'm not saying, and I'm not defending anything here, but I'm just giving you my assessment that I think that's why he gets that abuse from the fans. And of course, he's one of the star players as well. So the players that are of higher profile will get that abuse as well, unfortunately. Um, and why do people have to bring in race or color? I never liked Vinny. He's a prick, so just call him a prick or an idiot. No need to bring in race or color. Yeah, look, if someone's not a likable character, it is what it's like. I've not really had any dislike towards Vinicius Junior. I feel like he's a decent player and seems all right on the pitch as a personality. But look, in general, race should not be a topic of conversation here. But unfortunately, in football it is because there is no punishment for these actions. And until there isn't a serious punishment, i.e., you're deducting points from the club or you're eliminating the club from that competition due to that sort of incident, nothing's going to change. But of course, money talks in the football, especially when it comes to UEFA. They're not going to let that affect their money. They're not going to dismiss teams like that because of one incident. So unfortunately, that's just the world we live in. But players that have come from South America, if you're South American, you'll probably know more than me. But there will be certain terminologies that they use that in their eyes is not offensive, but in a global scale, it is offensive. So you have to watch what you say as well. And unfortunately, this happens quite a bit, but nothing, no one's getting punished for it. So until they don't get punished, it won't be eradicated from the game, unfortunately. But any rumors on Hughes to Saudi Oz? No, I've not heard any update. I think when I mentioned it last week, the next day they said that it's getting close. So I'm just waiting for a completion announcement now. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see. Most people think we have won the league over the last 2 games. It's 2 games, just 2 games. The slot in us needs to relax. Do you know what? Maybe I need to be online a bit more. I try to avoid being on X too much because it gets a bit toxic there. But yeah, people get gassed over. Look, I'm happy that we're winning. I'm not gonna be like, oh, I'm not happy. Yeah, look, I am happy that we're winning games because right now I need us to climb up that table. I need us to qualify for Champions League football in order for my dreams to happen, which is the players that I present on the screen. Otherwise, we ain't signing these players. So I'm gonna have to do another show and then give you an alternative targets, players that are from the championship possibly because we can't get high profile players anymore. Hopefully that's not the case. But yeah, I'm happy that we're winning games and long may it continue to be fair. Because we need to get that Champions League football. Um Forest won 3-0 away to Fenerbahce today as well. Thoughts on their new manager. I haven't seen the goals. I literally saw it pop up. Um, but yeah, that's a great result, and it's an away fixture, and we all know Turkish atmospheres are crazy, especially in that part of the world. So um, that's a great result for them. It really is. In terms of Victor Pereira, I know he was a former Wolves manager. I know he's got an attacking philosophy. So it'll be interesting to see, how it mixes well for us so far. So good. Maybe it's the new manager bounce. Who knows? But yeah, let's see. Let's see what happens. This is pause. My bad. That was nice. It's all good, Steve. It's all good. Um, Boss says Slot said he loves giving players days off, but he can't. But he can then visit his family. I hate that man so much. I need to see the comments. I haven't seen the comments to be fair. Bring your effing family to the city. My man put his family in Dubai so he can go there every time. So I don't even know they live in Dubai. So look, I'll be honest with you. I know, but you really don't like the guy. Um, but I wouldn't look into the personal life of the coach too much. Um, if he decides to move to Liverpool and leave his family in Holland, or if he's moved them to Dubai, that's really nothing for us to really focus on. If I'm being honest with you, as long as he's doing his job, that's all I care about. Make my team successful, win some trophies and silverware. That's all that counts. In terms of other stuff, doesn't really make a huge difference from my point of view. And it shouldn't really be a factor, to be fair. Big up Abdul, he says kick out Jim Ratcliffe and Gianluca Prestiani out of football. No room for racism. I totally agree. That the comments from um, Jim Ratcliffe, honestly, absolutely ridiculous. Coming from a person who lives in Monaco and is avoiding paying tax as a billionaire. He's saving billions of pounds living there, and he's literally a foreigner living in a foreign country, if that makes sense. So he's not French, he's not from Monaco, is he? So, you know, the level of hypocrisy nowadays is alarming. But yeah, some of the comments, and then he tried to say, "Oh, that's not exactly what I meant." You knew exactly what you're saying. Manchester is a city that is very, very much diverse, very much diverse. You know, it's a strong South Asian communities there, blacks, everything, every culture there. You know, it's very mixed. Kind of like London. You know, it's very, very mixed. So to say that, like, and not that's society I'm talking about. What about the football team? It's full of players all over the world. So relax yourself. You know, you can't say comments out loud like that, and you know, it just shows the person's real point of view. And yeah, he's racist, straight up. That's how I see it. You know, some people might not want to say it like that. I will. He's a straight up racist. So, you know, there's no room for stuff like that. So yeah, kick them both out. I totally agree with you, Abdul. Bo says you're right, Oz. X is one of the worst places. Yeah, X is wild. When I first started doing like, you know, this football channel here on YouTube, I would try to engage with people online just to kind of like put myself out there. And I've got into like heated debates. You know, I remember speaking about I can't remember what the topic was about Bruno Fernandes if he would um fit into our Liverpool team, which was under Jurgen Klopp at the time. And I said stylistically no, because we play a different formation. Like if we played with a number 10, then maybe he would, but I think otherwise he wouldn't. And I was getting death threats for that kind of opinion. So I'm thinking, what on earth is going on here? So yeah, people tell me, you know, as a joke that that's the life of an influencer. I'm not an influencer, so please don't put me in that category. I'm a content creator. That's how I like to phrase myself. Abdul says Liverpool next 5 games: Forest, West Ham, Wolves. You've written Wolves. Oh yeah, we've got Wolves twice, isn't it? Wolves in the Premier League and then in the FA Cup, and then Tottenham. All winnable games. It really is all winnable games. So hopefully we can get that done. Predicted lineup against Forest. So Abdul, I'll do my predicted lineup tomorrow. I've got the match preview show lineup. I haven't seen the press conference, so don't even know in terms of updates in terms of the squad. So once I've watched that, I'll have a bit more of an idea, and I'll give you a bit more of an accurate predicted lineup. So make sure to tune in for that tomorrow. Steve says, imagine all these clients, Verts and Barcola playing Conference League football. Oh my God, against Wi-Fi password clubs. Listen, if that is the case, number one, I might have to download the Duolingo apps because I'll need to learn how to pronounce those teams. So I don't want to butcher everything that I do on the show. And number two, yeah, let's hope that never happens because Verts and Barcola playing at that level, yeah, Barcola wouldn't even come to us. Let's not kill ourselves. Abdul saying big up. And we'll look one against Inter last night. I'm just saying, look farther, the manager Ozzy, the clear story in the history of the competition. Do you know what? I haven't. So I watched all the matches or caught up with the highlights on Tuesday. I saw the scoreline, but I haven't seen it. But yeah, what a story that is, isn't it? And against Inter Milan as well. What a result. Today, Steve said, good evening, Bozzy and chat. Liverpool FC need to sign Yamal, Pedri, Kubasi, Ronaldinho, Xavi, Iniesta, and Osama Asadi plus Nabil Azar. Nabil Elzar is definitely a blast from the past. I don't know if you guys remember, but when we first signed him, this was the era where I think YouTube just started hitting. Like people started using YouTube a bit more. So there weren't a lot of content out there. Like there wasn't a thing even called content creators. Like people were just uploading videos of like football compilations. And someone made a video about Nabil Elzar because he was playing for Morocco under 17s in the World Cup. And I think even the video was titled El Zarinho. And it was just showing like his skills, and I thought, you know what, we just signed the next biggest thing ever. I was getting fully gassed, but then when I watched, I'm like, yeah, he's good, but he ain't that good. Still remember the goal he scored against Cardiff, I think it was in the League Cup, and I think it was in the Cup pen as well. That was a good finish from him. But yeah, that was a blast in the past. And Asaidi, I expected big things from Asaidi. He looked very talented for his previous club, which was Herbian in the Eredivisie. But Brendan Rodgers didn't know how to utilize him, and he wasn't a bad player. He went over to Southampton and kind of killed it. They did really well there. So yeah, just mistreated, unfortunately. Beating City Athletic Inter in the last 3 games. I remember they have not played games for 3 months because it's winter. No, bloody hell, that is one great result. Then, if that is the case, people need to put respect on their names. The most northern club in the history as well. Yeah, that's kind of cool. Still, um, Abdul Tested to this, we need a prime Buffon, Carlos, Cafu, Maldini, Terry, Zidane, Vieira, Ronaldinho, R9, R7, and prime Messi. Why not? Why not? Um, Boy doing it with 9 Norwegians in the 11, with 6 local players starting. Aussie is possible with local players. It is, but I think that's a situation where they have to promote the youth, and I love that. I love those kind of clubs where they really promote the local players there. And that's something I always said about Crystal Palace. I feel like they need to do a bit more because, me growing up in South London, I've played against people that were really, really talented. But if they were nurtured a certain way, maybe they could have made it in the professional game. And there's an abundance of talent in where I'm from. So I'm only speaking about one demographic here. Imagine players in other parts of the UK or all over the world. If you nurture youth football the right way, you will definitely unearth, really, really talented players. So yeah, it's a great story. It really is. The Magic is a Liverpool fan as well. Okay, look, you got to add him to a short list. Why not? If he's making that kind of noise, he has to be. He has to be. He's on the radar. I'm sure he is now. So let's see. And I do continue to say, Prime Maradona, rest in peace. Pele, rest in peace. Roy Keane, Prime Xavi, Prime Kante. Do you think they can win Champions League, Aussie? I think it would be too much for Bodo Glimt to win the Champions League, but I'd love for them to go as far as possible. It would be a great story. So let's see, who they draw up with. But yeah, hopefully, I think the last couple of games in the Champions League they've been a bit crazy. I was watching the Monaco and PSG one. PSG were 2-0 down, but they're not winning 3-2, and they also missed a penalty as well. So it just goes to show, some crazy fixtures in the Champions League, which is what you want to see as a neutral fan as well. Games of the highest quality and complete madness and drama, as it unfolds. So yeah, hopefully, um, yeah, we'll see that in the coming weeks. And let's see who we end up getting as well. Steve says anybody but Arsenal to win they're not winning Jack. I'm telling you now, they're not winning anything. I was saying out loud, they're not winning the Premier League. They're not winning anything, in my opinion. So yeah, so that is not happening. The football world needs to keep Arsenal at 0 Champions League. I agree because they will be unbearable. But also, it's funny, Rio Ferdinand talking about respect after the Phoenix situation when he cheated on his dying wife. Yeah, I don't want to talk about personal life there. To be fair, but yeah, we'll skip part because that's not something I would want to talk about on screen. Um, but yeah, in terms of the Venus situation, something needs to happen. It really does because until someone is not made as an example, this will continue to happen. So let's see, let's see what happens. But hopefully something happens in the future. I think in the UK they're trying to do a lot of these no to racism campaigns. Are they working? I think marginally. Personally, I think when these incidents occur, they have to take huge repercussions, in my opinion. And that's when people will tell you, like, oh, okay, fine. If you suspend the team for the year because of the action, people will never do it. Fans will start behaving themselves. Do you remember Eric Cantona doing a karate kick at a fan? I'm sure fans at Crystal Palace weren't misbehaving after that. So, it sets the tone. It's not the right tone, but it set the tone, didn't it? So think of that what you will. During the League Cup final of the Aussie, Arteta on the wheel. Well, we're rooting for Man City, aren't we, to win that? So, and that is a strong possibility as well. So, yeah, let's see. Let's see what happens. But that is it for today, guys. Thank you so much for tuning. Thank you for, sticking and listening to my presentation slash TED talk today in terms of what the future holds for Liverpool. If you haven't already, please don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. Now, in terms of upcoming shows, match review tomorrow of Liverpool versus Nottingham Forest, and then we'll do the watch along. I believe it's Sunday at 2 p.m. Let me confirm with you guys. So it's Nottingham Forest versus Liverpool as it's an away fixture and it's a 2 p.m. kickoff on Sunday. So I will be doing the watch along for that fixture. So join me at 1:55, 5 minutes before the kickoff. We'll go through the lineups and then you'll watch the game to go. And hopefully we get a result this weekend. But yes, that is it for today, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Take care, stay safe, and I hope to speak with you all very, very soon. Goodbye.